Hello and welcome back, people. It is I, Rocket, here at Double Boost, joined today by the co-star.
Oh, hello! I'm Jared Thompson, co-host of the Double Boost discussion. Also known, what is your name for it?
The name, this is a pending name. This is the Double Boost Education Station.
Whoa. And then once the education station gets a little more power, we'll become the Education Nation.
Exactly.
We're taking over.
We are here to teach you some things about stuff. Last time we talked about graphics. This time we're talking about video game, remake, remasters, HD releases, and more. What's the more? You'll find out if you stay tuned.
Oh, you won't believe what happens next.
But I was thinking about this topic over the past little while because of a lot of games like come out. I think the most recent one that got me on this topic was Metroid Prime Remastered, because for one, it came out of nowhere, and it made me think about like other games and what all these titles mean. Like, what's a remake? What's a remaster? What's an HD release? What does any of this mean? Do you know?
I have some ideas. I have some things I can say, but I'm gonna let you go for it. I'm gonna let you, throw down. I'll pick it up, and I don't know where this metaphor is going. So let's go to the next slide. Yeah.
So we're gonna go through each one of these to kind of give you some more ideas of what all these things mean. The first one up is remake types, because not every remake is created the same.
Not all remakes are created equal.
Okay, so there are three different types. There's one-to-one remakes, enhanced remakes, and reimagining remakes. We're going to go through and kind of define what these things mean. So first off, we have the example of a one-to-one remake, which is Super Mario 3D All-Stars for the Super Nintendo.
You said Super Mario 3D All-Stars. This is just Super Mario All-Stars.
Oh yeah, there is a difference between the two.
Those two are they try to be like, oh, we're the same, but no.
There's a huge difference, because when it comes to All-Stars on the Super Nintendo, this is straight up just a remake of the first three Mario games. I mean, along with the Lost Levels.
Yeah, they're pretty much identical. One's 16-bit, obviously. It's got them glorious 16-bit graphics, but they're pretty much identical. There's some quality of life features, like you have infinite continues in the Super Nintendo version, while in the original version, you have to hold down the A button. You know that trick. You hold down the A button at the continue screen, and then you can continue instead of going back to the. But other than that, yeah, they're just
the same game. There's a few improvements. Obviously, it looks way better. It sounds a little nicer. I think most of them now have save features.
Yeah.
So like like with Mario 1, you don't just have to beat the game. You can like pick it up and play later.
Yeah, you can save and quit. It's super nice. I love the All-Star versions. Those are the versions I like to play.
That's like what I played growing up, was the All-Star versions of these games, because they're just better in every feasible way. Unless you're like a speedrunner and they don't have the same glitches or something.
Yeah,
because
you can't jump through the piranha plants in Mario 1.
Yeah, because the one-to-one remakes tend to fix bugs and errors with the original release, but overall it's the same game. They haven't really done anything fancy. On the other hand, there's enhanced remakes, which is a lot different because they take the original game and make it better. Well, hopefully, anyway.
They try.
they try.
Not always succeed.
So, like, a good example would be Link's Awakening, a game that came out on the Game Boy years ago. It's a 2D, over-the-top Zelda adventure. And years later, they decided to remake it for the Nintendo Switch. Well, rather than being, a 2D sprite game, it's now a 3D environment game. But everything remains the same. Dungeons are the same, weapons are the same, mechanics are the same. It's just rebuilt to more modern standards.
Yeah, and the frame rate's worse. I always gotta bring that up. I love Link's Awakening on Switch, but I do think it is so funny that it just, like, the frame rate is worse on the remake than it is on the freaking OG Game Boy. And that's what you get sometimes.
Sometimes they're too ambitious with their remakes, and they, oddly enough, make things worse, which is a good example with Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated. because everyone loved the original. And, you know, they remade the game, they redid all the models, they redid all the music and leveled in art and all that stuff.
Game looks good.
It looks really nice. But a lot of the charm is kind of gone because they patched it away.
Yeah, and obviously people hate that all the glitches are gone.
Yeah, I think that's like the biggest challenge that people run into when they remake something, is people have so many fond memories of the original that you want to try to remake it to make it, you know, a little bit better, but sometimes you make it worse. Like Majora's Mask 3D is a really good example of taking things that were not problematic and then making them problematic. The biggest example is Zora swimming.
Oh yeah, they made Zora swimming worse.
Yeah, they went from, you know, this fast swimming mechanic to doggy paddle, basically.
I wonder why they did that.
I don't know. They made some weird decisions with it.
Because on the other hand, because the thing about, like, Battle for Bikini Bottom, they took away the fun glitches. But, like, Ocarina of Time 3D, you can still... I think almost all of the N64 glitches are in that thing.
A lot of the more common ones, like Infinite Sword glitches.
Yeah, like, they didn't take ISG out. They totally could have, but they were like, just kind of interesting. They just said, yeah, keep it in there.
So, like, yeah, that's kind of like a weird thing. Sometimes we'll, like, keep things, but change things. More common with these enhanced remakes is they'll add new features and new levels. More often than not, adding scrapped content from the original. Like of Battle for Bikini Bottom, they added a new fight with Robot Squidward, which is the multiplayer mode.
Oh yeah, it's not good.
It's not good. That's why it was scrapped in the first place. But they added it in there as like a bonus perk for playing the new version. Sometimes these bonuses are good, sometimes they're not.
Yeah, because Link's Awakening had like that dungeon builder mode, which was based on like their idea for the original Zelda 1. And then they finally put it in this Link's Awakening.
Yeah, they just have like these scrapped ideas that, you know, now that they have more time and talent, they decide to put them in there and they're like, why did we have this?
But it's like sometimes they take away random things, because it's like we were talking the other day, like in the original Superstar Saga, Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, you had the multiplayer Super Mario Bros. Multiplayer game, which you can watch us play. Yes. Shameless plug, thank you. But the remake doesn't have the multiplayer anymore.
Yeah, they added a different feature being like Bowser's Minions, which is additional side content, like extra story.
It's like, we're gonna take away this thing. Like, it's just weird, the push and pull of, we decided to keep this extra feature, we're gonna add this, but since we added this, the multiplayer goes away. Because that's what freaking Naughty Dog does. They'll remake an Uncharted game and be like, no multiplayer anymore.
Yeah, that's just the thing, we don't like it anymore.
Yeah, Last of Us remake doesn't need the multiplayer anymore. No one wanted it anyway. Kind of funny.
But yeah, enhanced versions, just nicer, sometimes worse versions than the originals. Next is one, well, this is more information about enhanced remakes. Some examples of what they include. You know, updating the graphics, the story, or not really the story. Sometimes they'll add like little fluff elements. Like with Porky and Rocky, you were telling me.
Pocky.
I don't know why I'm saying Porky.
But I like Porky and Rourke. Porky and Rourke. I like. You can just say it again.
Pocky and Rocky?
Yeah, it's Pocky and Rocky.
So Jared was telling me about Pocky and Rocky and this reviewer who was going over all these additions to the game, where they kind of like have added a few, I guess, segues and improvements to the story.
Yeah, so Pocky and Rocky Reshrined is super interesting, and Natsume. The crazy thing about Natsume is they made games in like the 80s, and it's like the same group of guys all throughout, and they're remaking the games they made in the 80s right now. So they remade the Ninja Warriors, they remade Wild Guns, and now they remade Pocky and Rocky. But they're not remakes. They're more. It's like weird. It's not much of a reimagining either. It's just like they take Pocky and Rocky 1 and what it is, and they just really just add to it and make the best version of it. Where the levels are. You can tell like this is level 1, but it's totally different. Like the boss, the final boss of the first level isn't actually, he has like a second phase. They added more story elements. Like, I mean, I'm not, spoilers for the first level. I mean, no one cares about the story of Pocky and Rocky. At the very in this version, Pocky just straight up dies after the first level. She's dead. And then you play as Rocky, and then you play as Ghost Pocky, dead in the afterlife in like level 3. Like they went wild with it. Like it's just like, okay. So there's enhanced reshrines.
Yeah, like you never know what you're gonna get with these things. I know they added more playable characters.
Yes, they added like a bunch. You used to only be able to play as Pocky and Rocky, but all of those people you're seeing on that screen you can play as on the cover.
So like you never know what you're gonna get with enhanced remakes. Sometimes they're really good, sometimes they're not, but they're enhanced. Next comes up with reimagining remakes, which are very common for like older games. So like Final Fantasy VII and Resident Evil 2 from the PlayStation era. You know, back when they weren't really doing story stuff. They were just like, this is a 3D game. How do we make this into like a game, you know?
Yeah, and
they didn't have the most best direction, I would say.
And it's like, how do you remake Final Fantasy VII? Because it's like, especially in 3D with modern, like, what do you do? So instead of just like trying to somehow find a way to make Final Fantasy VII be an exact copy of Final Fantasy VII, while somehow trying to make it a modern AAA video game, they just go, it's Final Fantasy VII, completely different game though. Like, same characters, but like, same with Resident Evil 2. Well, they couldn't be further away, but also be the same at the same time. It's really interesting.
What I think about this is like, movies will often do this, where they remake a movie maybe from the 60s in a more modern era, like Planet of the Apes, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's the first example that comes to my mind is, you know, this is the original story, and then they remake that story with new people, new actors, but it's like the same kind of characters, same kind of story beats, but they've changed things up a little bit to keep it fresh and interesting. Like Resident Evil 2, I know like they did this directly where they like moved item placements so that way you couldn't just play the original and then cheese your way through the game. Like they added things and made things different and honestly just made the story make more sense.
Yeah, and then the unique thing about Resident Evil 2 is they all flow into each other, and the story of Resident Evil is a mess. And so they're like, let's make it less of a mess and make things make sense. But Resident Evil 2 Remake, that's real good. Real juicy video game.
They did a really good job because they have, you know, the benefit of hindsight.
Yes.
Because I'm pretty sure they made Resident Evil, they're like, this is a game, maybe we'll make a sequel, maybe they won't. So now that they've, you know, have a concrete way of where the plot is going, they know how to set things up, they know how to get things introduced in the right way, and just make things more coherent, you know?
Yeah, and Final Fantasy VII Remake, that's like, you could make a 4-hour video trying to talk about Final Fantasy VII Remake and how is it a remake? It's a it's like Remake's the worst thing they could have ever said on
because that is not true. They
No.
have it is the same story, same concepts, but you know what, Final Fantasy VII is a turn-based RPG, and now Final Fantasy VII Remake is like an action RPG, similar to Crisis Core, you know, that kind of gameplay.
Yeah, and it might, and we'll see about the second one. And I kind of like your Planet of the Apes analogy because the first Planet of the Apes remake kind of tries to be the first Planet of the Apes movie, but then like the second remake of Planet of the Apes movies goes a different way, you know? Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, the next one, which they didn't call it Remake 2, interesting. I don't think they're gonna even be recognizable to Final Fantasy 1. I think they're just gonna go absolutely out of nowhere and it's gonna be a completely different game.
Probably like with, you know, the concept of the movie Rise of Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
Like, that's completely different direction than the original movie's idea.
Yeah.
They're just like, this is the concept, we're gonna shake it up tremendously.
We're gonna go wild with it.
We're gonna go crazy with it.
And they did. Those movies are nuts.
They do a lot of weird things. But that's like a reimaginings.
Yeah.
They just same characters, same story, but way different.
It's kind of like a reboot in a weird way. It was Final Fantasy. They should have called it Final Fantasy VII Reboot.
Ooh.
And they should have had Cloud's boot on the cover.
What is this, Reboot Camp?
Oh,
Advance Wars?
Shoot, they already did!
So next up, I this one's coming out of left field, because this is fan remake territory, which this definition is kind of all over the place, because you never know what you're going to get. You're either going to get something really cool like AM2R, sorry, which is another Metroid 2 remake, which is a phenomenal, really cool remake of, Metroid 2 for the Game Boy, where it makes it more akin to, Super Metroid?
Yeah.
Graphical-wise, and adds all these features and stuff. And it's been developed for who knows how many years.
Yeah, that's a really cool fan remake. It kind of stands on its own, is comprehensive as AM2R is compared to, we remade Mario 1 in, Flash. You go on Newgrounds.
Yeah.
And play, or Kaizo Mario. Do you know what I'm talking about? Those Mario World, bizarro fan games. Granted, they're not remakes, per se, like AM2R is. I'm trying to think of any other one like AM2R. Does it exist? It's got to.
The other remake that I kind of think of is, it's a game called Black Mesa, which is a remake of Half-Life 1.
Oh, yeah. And then they've remade Dude, when you go into the Valve territory, it's there's so many, because there's Half-Life 1, then there's Half-Life 1 that was made in Source Engine 2. Is that Black Mesa, the one that they made in Source, or is that Half-Life Source?
I'm not entirely sure about all those things. I just heard about Black Mesa as I was doing some research.
Yeah.
That it's basically Half-Life 1, but it's a fan game, and it's for sale on Steam.
Yeah, you can buy it. That's the crazy thing with Valve. Valve just lets people remake their games, and then
Valve's we don't have to do this? By all means.
I mean, it's like Dota 2. It's this is a hack of another game, but we'll just, whatever. Why not? This is your own game. But I also we see the dreaded Unreal Engine.
It's something you see every now and then, where it's so-and-so character in Unreal Engine 4 or 5 or whatever, where they're just standing in a grass field. And, no hardship to Unreal Engine, but, specifically the Ocarina of Time version of Unreal Engine, it just doesn't feel right. And something about it is just so off,
They're really weird. It's that a while back, it was in Unreal Engine 5, they had a really stiff, bad-looking Mario walking forward.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that? And he was hitting blocks. It was really bad. It was Mario and UE5. And then it's always some bottom of the barrel Facebook page that reshares gaming videos. It's this looks so good. I saw one for I think me and you were watching it, the not Tomb Raider, what is it? Temple Run? Temple Run in Unreal Engine 5 looks amazing, and I just look at it, that doesn't look good. That looks bad. Just because you up to the bloom and everything is super high detail.
Just because you put grass everywhere doesn't mean it's really good. And I was playing a fan version of the Unreal Engine Ocarina of Time game that's being developed, and everything about it feels very Ubisoft. It's not very good, because it's weird, because it's an enhanced version of Ocarina of Time. The graphics and everything's improved, but they try to keep the same gameplay mechanics, and it just doesn't feel right.
Get owned, Ubisoft. Does it do that thing where they add too much animation to Link, where he's slower now because they added a bunch of animation to his sword swing? Did they do that?
I would say a little bit. I don't know. There's some contorting, because he'll look at stuff, but his body isn't quite rigged correctly. And it's something that's in development, so you never know what kind of quality you're gonna get, because that's the thing about fan remakes. The quality is all over the place. Because either they've been working on this thing for 10 years and is the perfect passion project, or some guy just opened up Unreal Engine 5 and put Link in it.
Yeah.
Like, you never really know what quality you're going to get until you get the finished project.
And I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, they're not getting paid for it. None of these almost ever come out, especially the Nintendo ones, because Nintendo, like, hates this. Say what you will about it, but they will not allow these to be made. So they usually never actually get finished, and it's usually the guy who's making it's not getting paid, and he gives up eventually, which I understand. So they're weird, because it's like sometimes they come out, it's just like random things people make on the internet. Sometimes they're pretty good.
Sometimes they're not. A good example would be someone who's remaking Ocarina of Time in the Wind Waker engine. I don't know if you've seen that.
I have seen that.
That is a really good example of a fan remake done well. Like, it's still in development, it's still being worked on, and it's just like Ocarina of Time, but Wind Waker.
Yeah.
And it's just really cool. It's a really good example of it done right. But fan remakes, they're kind of hit or miss. I don't really know where I was going with this slide, but you know, all these things, to remake a game, it's a lot of work. You gotta start from scratch. You gotta look at the original source material and be like, okay, how did they do this? We're gonna remake it. But what if they don't really want to fully build something from the ground up?
It's a lot of money.
This is where remasters and HD releases come into play.
Let's go.
So a remastered game is basically taking the original game and kind of updating it for modern consoles. So, like I've mentioned before, Metroid Prime Remastered is a really good example of this. Well, they've taken the GameCube version and they've updated the models, they've updated the environment, updated the music, and used, I'm pretty sure, like the original code to kind of update things to where it looks a lot nicer. And it's like in widescreen. Mm-hmm. It's got analog controller support. It's just a better version of the original. Which that's what remasters are, is they take the original and just kind of like make these small improvements. It's nothing major, it's nothing large. It's just making improvements.
Yeah, and I think the best example, well, not example, but like the best thing a remake can do is like, especially when it's like an older game, is just make it run better. Like, make it a better experience than playing on the original console. Because the most frustrating thing is when they remake Tales of Symphonia or something, and it's like 30 FPS when it was 60 FPS on GameCube. And it's just like, if I had the choice to play any one, why would I pick this one other than it's on the newest console? And so, I mean, Metroid Prime Remake, kudos to them. Beautiful game, runs better than the original, looks better, all around awesome package. And if we go back, Skyward Sword HD, also very good. I don't think enough people talk about how good Skyward Sword HD is. I don't know, no one talked about it.
Yeah, it's such a good thing. It is in a different category, so you're getting off topic.
Oh, my bad. But it is, it's the only 3D Zelda game that runs at 60 FPS, so thank you.
But yeah, like the remastered, it's not trying to replace the original, it's just trying to make the original better. That's all it's trying to do. It makes things better. It sometimes will add new things. Like Ace Attorney Trilogy, you know, I think they cleaned up the artwork a lot because it used to be on the Game Boy and DS were sprite-based,
yep.
And they've remade it so it's more like traditional...
All new assets.
But it's the same story, it's the same game, and with the trilogy, you get 3 games for 1. This is very common when it comes to any kind of remake, remaster, is they take, especially games that have trilogies, is they just port them all into one bundle.
Curious that they didn't do it with Metroid. I'm still wondering, I mean, it's a $30 game, so I know there's that, but... Weird.
I mean, they did do it technically with Metroid Prime Trilogy on the Wii?
Yeah, it's just weird, but it's not even an HD port, because the graphics aren't better.
Yeah, it's just a straight up port of the game, and we'll get to those later. But, you know, remasters, just trying to make the game a better product. Like, this can replace the original just because of those improvements that make it so much easier to play.
I'm all for it.
Now, on the other hand, you have HD releases of games, which often do not, like, remake models, remake environments. They just take the original textures and kind of update them a little bit.
Yep.
I think Wind Waker is the best example of this, where they basically took Wind Waker and added bloom
Yep, they added bloom and some ambient occlusion and called it a day.
And they just made it, run faster, run better. They added a few quality of life improvements. I mean, playing on the Wii U, item inventory swap at any point in time.
It's fantastic.
Such a great feature.
It's great.
Such a good time. And then Twilight Princess HD, same thing. You take the GameCube game, the Wii game, and you just enhance it a little bit by improving the textures. And HD versions are kind of like, I would say they're a lot more low effort than remasters.
Yeah, a lot of the time what they do is, they just take the assets, they up-res them. If the game ran at a lower resolution, they up the res. Sometimes improve the frame rate. I don't remember if the frame rates are better. I think they're about the same. I think they're about the same in these Zelda ones, but they add some quality of life improvements. I don't even think there's, other than Wind Waker actually having like a better post-game, or like before the end, did they change anything in Twilight Princess?
So Twilight Princess added hero mode, which I think Wind Waker did as well, was that hero mode.
There's a hero mode.
Because Twilight Princess is in that weird category where the previous versions are dramatically different.
Yeah.
Because of the world swap.
Right. Yeah, I don't know why Nintendo. I know why they did it, but it was stupid.
It's a weird thing. Where they've added like a few things. They even added amiibo support.
Oh!
And they also did add a new dungeon using the Wolf Link amiibo.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Interesting. I never played that.
So like HD versions, operating the textures, they might add new features. They might not. It really depends.
Yeah, and usually like these HD releases mostly just exist to bring it off of an older console to a newer one. It's just a port and they add some nice features to it, It's like I don't know, BioShock. They did it with BioShock. Like, here's BioShock. It's not stuck on like the 360 PS3 anymore. Here, you play it on your PS4 now. There you go. It's modern. You can play it on your Switch now. There you go. Don't bug us about it.
Yeah, that's how it feels like with HD versions are. It's like it's a game that's no longer stuck on its original console. Like they decided to, they didn't want to remake it, but people wanted it again, but they didn't want to have to like go out and hunt down an Xbox and hunt down the game itself.
Yeah, and a lot of these console manufacturers just weren't thinking about backwards compatibility much. It's like, oh, yeah, that's stuck on PS3. Guess we should remake it again so people can buy our game.
We made this game once. People still want to buy it.
And it's like, yeah, weird. Anyway, that's all I gotta say about HD.
Are you gonna say anything about Skyward Sword?
Oh yeah, Skyward Sword HD rules. It's real good. I mean, 60 FPS. Looks real nice. All my issues with Skyward Sword got fixed in the remake. Cause Skyward Sword's a weird one. That's like, these two are like universally beloved. Everyone's like, oh, Wind Waker's so good.
Twilight Princess
so good. But Skyward Sword, for some reason, they're like, trash. Just trash video game. And it's like, the intro is so much snappier. Dude, they like shaved an hour and a half off that intro. Like, I don't know how they did it. I don't even remember the original intro, but they just were like, let's get to the point with this game. And Fee doesn't bug the heck out of you. The sword control somehow, I mean, a lot of people were complaining about it. I thought they worked better on the Switch than they did on the Wii for the most part. And if you don't want to deal with them, you can just use the joystick, and that works actually better than I thought it would.
Honestly, when I was playing the HD version, I swapped between motion controls and stick controls. Like, there are certain things that were way better with motion controls.
Yeah.
Like, I think I liked the combat with the motion controls. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to, like, moving in the, the loft wing, stick controls were way better.
Oh, I can tell you, I did that pumpkin mini game. I did that with the stick. I was not doing, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I was like, I ain't doing this with the motion. No way. No way, dude.
Now, as we've been talking about Remastered and HD, you might be wondering, are these the same thing? And for the most part, they kind of are. They do more or less the same concept. I think the main thing that kind of separates them is what they do. HD, they're just up-resing the textures. They're keeping the original game. They might have to improve some graphics. They might add new things. That's, for example, like God of War Collection, Metal Gear Solid HD Collection, Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary Edition. Like, these are just taking the original games and making sure they don't run at 240p.
Yeah.
They run at 1080p.
Yeah.
That's like the big difference.
Uh-huh.
Well, remasters, are they taking, the original models and kind of updating them a little bit more to make them look nicer and look prettier? Like, you can typically tell that they changed something when it comes to remastered.
Yeah, I think a lot of it... Oh, were you going to say something?
No, you're good.
I think a lot of it comes down to budget. How much money do we want to put into this? It's like, are we gonna just... Do we just want this game to be re-released? Let's just quick up-res the textures, quick project. Usually it happens before, like, a game. Like, for example, Metroid Prime Remastered. They're like... This one was a little more high effort than I was expecting, but it was like, hey, we need this remaster out so people know what Metroid Prime is, because a new game hasn't come out in years.
Yeah.
So, like, a lot of the times, like, a new game in this series hasn't come out, so let's release... And Metroid Prime is probably not a good example, because they did actually a pretty good job, but it's like, I don't know. Whatever. Let's throw out Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, right? Let's throw that out so we can make a new new Crash Bandicoot game. I'm all over the place.
Yeah. And I mean, The Last of Us Remastered, same.
Yeah, and then
thing.
Last of Us Remastered was just like, that's gonna be stuck on PS3, so let's hurry real quick, get that on PS4. And it helps the devs kind of learn how to make games on the new console. Like, for Naughty Dog, it was like, it really leaned into, okay, we made Last of Us Remastered on PS4, we'll take all of that stuff we made, and we'll make Uncharted 4 with that technology. And so a lot of times it's just, if you think of the back end of what it's like being a real game dev, a lot of the time it's just like a small project before you're gonna potentially lose billions on a AAA game. You know this one's good, so let's bet on that.
Let's just get our footing going, and then make the new thing later.
Yeah, and I think that's what Metroid Prime Remastered is to Metroid Prime 4. I think they just needed to make something on Switch. I don't know.
Yeah. So that's kind of like the difference. Next,
the best game.
So, you know, you're always talking about remakes, remasters, HD versions. People don't really talk about ports that often, because ports are taking the same game and just putting it on a different hardware.
Yep.
More often than not, ports come out at the same time, like multi-releases. Like, it will all come out on the PlayStation 2, the Xbox, and the GameCube. Sometimes later on, right?
Yeah.
Because Resident Evil 4 is a really good example, where it came out on the GameCube and was only for the GameCube.
Yep.
For like a couple months.
Well, yeah, I don't even think it was a whole year.
And then they ported it to the PlayStation 2. Everything's pretty much the same. There might be some slight improvements to the graphics.
No, it's actually worse.
Really?
Yeah, the PS2 versions got worse graphics.
That's surprising.
Yeah, it's worse.
Because I figured the PS2 was stronger than the GameCube.
It is, but it's worse. It's not a very good port. All of the ports are based off the GameCube one, not the PS2 one, which is a kind of a misconception.
That's kind of funny.
Yeah,
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, I watched a whole comparison between GameCube, PS2, and the PC version. The original PC version's real bad, by the way. It does not support controller, and it does not support mouse. You have to play with all keyboard, like dual analog on your keyboard. So anyway, that's a fun little tidbit for you.
But Resident Evil 4 is a really good example of porting a game where all they do is make sure it can run on a different system.
Yep.
Like, they don't really enhance anything. It's just the same game ported to a different console.
Yeah, the Wii version's just different controls, all of what I know.
Yeah, then they have, you know, the PS4 version of Resident Evil 4, which is just the port. It's just the same game. There's no improvements. It might run a little smoother just because it's basically emulating old hardware.
Yeah, it's 60 FPS and HD, but like the Oculus version's just like it's the Wii version, but in VR basically. Yeah,
like I played that version of Resident Evil 4. Really good version, just so you know. VR, really good time. But yeah, like the graphics are like, this is, you know.
Yeah, Resident Evil 4 is just it's just fun to poke fun at how many times. Found out there was a Android version of this game. I'm gonna make you look that up because I want to see what that looks like.
So yeah, ports, just they don't want to remake anything. They don't want to remaster anything. They just want the game to be accessible to more people. So
it's on more things.
It's on more things. That's all it is.
It's like Myst. I want to bring up every time Myst has been re-released. I'm gonna make you do it.
Oh no.
You just take a screenshot of Wikipedia of every console Myst is on. That's all you need. It's a massive list. Oh, portable! We're going outside!
So this is a different kind of port because it's portable. It's the portable ports.
Ah, it's a port. It's portable.
Yeah. So this was way more common back in the day of like the DS, the 3DS, the PSP, and the Vita. Like those consoles. And I guess the Game Gear, if you really want to go back in time.
Oh shoot, the Game Gear, baby.
Where they take home console games and they make them for handheld so people can play them on the go. They tend to be a lot less advanced and the resolution's not as good because it's on a DS.
Yeah.
Not the most powerful system in the world, but it's portable. I mean, people have always talked about how Super Mario 64 DS is the best version, which is factually wrong.
I don't like that game.
I've tried playing it a couple times and like it's like a weird category because technically it is a remake and technically it is a port.
It's a reimagining, I'd say.
It's a reimagining port.
It's a reimagining portable port.
Because like everything is the same, but you play as Wario, Mario, Yoshi, and Luigi.
Yeah, there's extra stars. Things are weird. Unlike Resident Evil, Deadly Silence, which is just RE1 with 2 screens.
Yeah, like I was playing around with this, and you have a constant map, which is really nice to have in Resident Evil, and then there's these weird touchscreen sections where you have to like knife some zombies in touchscreen mode. Mm-hmm. So like portable stuff, because they can't really improve the graphics, they tend to work a lot more on features than graphical capacity.
Yeah, and like nowadays, portable ports is just like, oh, just buy the Switch version, bro.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's like nowadays it's like, oh, do you want Crisis Core like at 60 FPS on PS4 and 5, or do you want the portable version on Switch? It runs worse, doesn't look as good, but hey, you can take it anywhere, and I mean that's basically the same concept. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, that's what the Game Boy, like, the Game Boy Advanced is just a portable Super Nintendo, if you ask me. Nintendo was just like, here's all these Super Nintendo games, you can now play them on your Game Boy.
I mean, they did also the, NES Classics.
Oh,
they
yeah.
also ported NES versions. That's all it was.
That's how I beat Zelda 1. On a Game Boy Micro. I beat that on a Game Boy Micro.
Wow, this guy's flexing.
Dude, that was hard.
But there's also the reverse, where there's console ports of handheld games. And the best example I have of this is Jak and Daxter Lost Frontier and Ratchet and Clank Size Matters, because these started out as PSP games. Mm-hmm. And then a couple years later, because the PS2 was still around, they ported them to the PS2.
Yeah.
Because the PSP is just the PlayStation 1.5.
Basically, yes.
It's better than the PlayStation, but it's not as good as the PlayStation 2.
But almost.
So like it can kind of emulate the PlayStation 2, but it can't.
Yeah.
And like these ports are strictly just making things a little bit better. Like, render distance is improved, some graphics are improved, controls are improved because PlayStation 2 has 2 more bumper buttons.
Oh yeah, you got 2 extra buttons.
Yeah. So like they do the same thing, where they just take a handheld, put it on a console, call it a day.
Yeah, but would we consider Gravity Rush remastered one of these?
Yeah, that would be one of them.
Yeah, where it's just like, hey, is this game on Vita? Oh, hey guys, it's not selling well. Well, dude, put that on the PS4. And it's like, okay, it's like beep, 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 beep. Up res.
The textures, add a few things. Add the DLC.
Here's weird motion controls on the PlayStation 4. I probably had it on the Vita. I don't know. It's like, there you go. And I also think of, didn't Kingdom Hearts do this a few times?
Yeah, Kingdom Hearts are kind of weird because how they did their mobile ports depended on the game. So like you have Kingdom Hearts Coded and Kingdom Hearts Recoded, which Coded was a phone game, Recoded was a DS game, so it's porting a mobile game to a DS.
Okay, yeah.
And then rather than remaking that game, they only ported over the cutscenes for the HD collection.
Really? Is that what happened?
Yeah, you can't play the game. You can only watch the cutscenes in the HD version.
Is that a port?
I couldn't tell you.
That's a Kingdom Hearts is it can live in its own realm of video games. Who knows? But I don't want to talk about those guys. Those guys are doing their own thing.
See, on the other hand, Birth by Sleep, a PSP game, was successfully and fully ported to that collection.
Oh yeah, so was DDD.
Yeah, Dream Drop Distance was also ported to HD versions, which like PSP ports are a lot easier because the PSP doesn't normally add features. It's just a home console on the go.
Yeah.
Where the DS and 3DS has 2 screens.
Oh yeah.
You can't really emulate that very well on other games.
Yeah, and it's like that's why they made the PlayStation TV because they couldn't figure out how to send some of them Vita games over to PS4.
Yeah. Quick thing, because it's a remake, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl is an example of trying to use 2 screens where you have the main screen and then you have the smallest screen in the corner.
Oh,
it was a weird decision to do that.
Yeah, you're kind of screwed with doing a DS port.
Yeah, because the DS, they have like all these features and you're like, how do we incorporate that in a game that doesn't have that? So that's more of a challenge for people to do.
Yeah, that's a whole other can of worms. Is like Nintendo's weird gimmicks. How do you port that?
Yeah, like a lot of people are like, how do you port motion controls?
I mean, that's why. What's the Vita Uncharted game?
Golden Abyss, I think.
Like that one requires the you really use the weird back buttons or back sensors on the PSP. Or the PS Vita, and that's why like that game's not probably ever gonna get ported because how do you do with that?
How do you change that mechanic?
How do you change that? It's like I don't know, weird stuff.
So weird things with console ports when you're trying to port something that's mobile to console. You do some weird decisions. Sometimes you only port the cousins.
Can I add one just for fun?
Yeah.
Space Invaders Extreme.
Oh,
I just wanted to say it. That's all I wanted to say. Oh, shoot! Not these things!
So you had your games that were home consoles put on portable, and then you had your portable games put on home consoles, but then you got home consoles put on phones.
I don't like it. I don't like it.
This is such a weird category because I guess it makes sense if you take like NES or Super NES games and put them on a phone. Because the phone can emulate them probably pretty well. But they do a lot of weird things. So like Symphony of the Night, it's just a, retro game, 2D side-scroller. Pretty easy to port over to the phones. You get wonky controls, and that's the worst part about mobile game ports. Yes. Is the controls suffer so much. Because most people only have the touchscreen interfaces. You can get external accessories, but it's never the same.
No, they usually are never a good way to play these games.
It's like if you've played the game before and you want a way to play wherever you go because you always have your phone on you, sure, shell out $10, $15 and buy the mobile version, but you really want to play the console version of these games.
Well, like, are you really playing it on the go if you have to attach a controller to your phone? Like...
It's like at that point, just...
What are you doing?
What are you doing?
I gotta play Mega Man X on the bus, and you're just like, this is not playable.
And what's interesting about these ports is, these games were never designed to be a pick up and play, like you can just stop whenever. So, like, how do you... Like, Symphony of the Night has strict save points.
Yes.
Like, I've been playing the mobile version and it has strict save points. So you can't just stop what you're doing. With like most mobile games, you have to get to the save point and then you can stop playing, which kind of ruins the fact that it's portable.
Yeah,
you can't just play whenever.
Yeah, Final Fantasy does the same thing. Dragon Quest has like a quick save feature, but it works like it's not a real save. It's like you can quick save and then you can go to that exact point, but it's like not a real save, kind of like...
If you save into that and then you turn it off, you lose that save.
Yeah, like you can't get back into it, and so it's like, But like, there's one. I think they're the Professor Layton games and some of those kind of more
puzzle games.
And I think Phoenix Wright same company, I guess. They actually have pretty good mobile ports. Like that's not a bad way to play those games. But like I wouldn't play anything probably harder than a visual novel on my phone if I don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, Dragon Quest VIII, it was only on, I think it was on the iPad, it was iOS devices only, and like, it just makes the game the most inferior version.
Yes.
Because I think it removes dialogue, like voiceover lines, you got wonky controls. In fact, it was unbeatable because there was a game-breaking bug that they didn't fix for a while.
Of course.
But this is simply taking, an existing game and just making it work on portable. But then there's Final Fantasy 15 Pocket Edition. There was no way they were going to port Final Fantasy 15 successfully to a mobile device. So they just made a whole new game.
Yep. They said, we want this on mobile, we want this on Switch, how do we do it? They're like, make them chibi.
Yeah. Make Gladys or Gladios buff.
Oh,
make him Knuckles.
Make him a beefcake, man. What a beefcake that man is. Oh my gosh.
And this kind of puts you in a weird situation where you have the original game, Final Fantasy 15. You want to get it to more people, so you make the Pocket Edition for the phones. But then you have people who like the Pocket Edition, so then you port the Pocket Edition to the home consoles.
Yeah, it's on PS4. Why? Is it Pocket Edition?
It's Pocket Edition HD.
If it's on a PS4, it's no longer in my pocket. You ever try to put one of those in your pocket?
It's not gonna work, man.
It does not. I don't care how big your pants are. One last thing I'll say about mobile game ports is the infuriating thing is sometimes it's like we ported it to mobile, but it's like there's not another good way to play it. Like Symphony of the Night, it's like if you're an Xbox guy, you have to go back to the 360 if you want to play Symphony of the Night. It's only on PS4, like the remake, unless you get this mobile one. It's like, come on. It's like, why can't I play Dragon Quest on the Switch? Oh, I can't. I have to play it on iPad. It's like, come on. Like, what? Why?
It's like infuriating because they did eventually bring Dragon Quest VIII to the 3DS.
Oh yeah.
But you can't play Dragon Quest VIII, I think, on any modern console right now.
No, you can't.
Like, you have to play the mobile version, and that's it.
Yeah, that's how I felt because I wanted to play Dragon Quest V, because I was interested in 5, and the only modern console I can play it on is my phone. The only other way is I have to play it on the DS. So I whipped out my OG DS because there's no other good way to play it because they update the mobile one. Who wants that?
Who does that?
Enix does.
Mobile game ports are such a... It's like good if you're not an actual gamer. If it's something you're trying to get into, it's like a good stepping stone. But once you get past that, they're just terrible.
Get on
bad.
Fake gamers.
We know who you are.
There's like those Android consoles that are like $50 from China.
Oh yeah, like Ouya or whatever.
Yeah, that's what these are for.
What if we took mobile gaming and made it a home console?
And it's like, oh, it's just a box that runs Android like 11. It's like, yay!
But then you run into problems because not every game is designed to work with a controller. It's designed to be used as a touchscreen.
Yeah, that's real bad. Well, anyway.
Well, thanks for joining the Double Boost Education Station as we have hopefully kind of cleared up some things about what things are, what things mean. And there's some more things we didn't really touch about, like Definitive Edition, and like all the weird titles that things have. We'll maybe talk about that another day if you people are interested.
Yeah, that's just throwing all the DLC on a disc and calling it a day.
Which, that is like a dilemma that people face, where it's like a game comes out and they release DLC, and it's like, okay, I bought the game for $60, I'm gonna spend $50 to get all the DLC, and then 2 years later, there's a definitive version that's like $30 with all the DLC. It's like,
yeah,
that's a ripoff.
That happened to my buddy. He was so mad because it was like Destiny 1 had been out for a while. And so he was like, I really want to get into Destiny 1. And so he bought Destiny 1 and bought all of the DLC all at the same time. He's like, I'm really gonna grind into Destiny 1, okay? And so he paid $120 for everything in Destiny 1. And I kid you not, a month later, they were like, Destiny 1 Taken King Edition, $30. Everything he just paid for, you would have waited 1 month. It would only have been $30. He was livid, and he was like, I'm never giving Bungie money ever again. He plays Destiny 2 now, but
that's besides the point.
But I don't know if you want to keep that or not, but that's a funny story I got.
Maybe I'll make that an exclusive short.
Exclusive. Well, thank you.
Do you have any final thoughts?
I like ports because I like ports, I like remasters, I like remakes. I know some people get pissed off about them sometimes. It's like, we want new stuff. But, you know, the great thing about old games is they're better because there's more of them. And so, I mean, bring them over. You know, bring them over. I want to play that on my new TV. You know, I'm tired of having to keep my PS2 plugged in all the time. Give me that on my new TV. Give me good versions of these games. I like it.
It would be so nice if you could just play a game on your modern hardware and not have to, like, worry about it ever again.
It would be nice.
And it's, like, really nice when you are someone who, like, didn't grow up with this kind of game and you want to go play Mario Party 4, but it's like $200 to buy it. It's like, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna shell out that money? No, you don't want to do that.
No, you're gonna buy an SD card with the Swiss on it and pirate the game. That's what you're gonna do.
Thanks for listening to the Double Boost Education Station.